Hello and welcome to the RevOps show. It's been a bit of time now since we last talked about change management, but this time around the conversation goes in a direction that I was not expecting. Doug and Jess talk through what change management looks like today and whether it's still change management or if the concept has morphed over time. It's always a good time to watch these two work things out over an episode in real time. So let's get into it.
Jess, what's up with this new counting down from 5 thing?
I don't know. I think all the technology is coming to get you, Doug.
I mean, I'm I'm mentally prepared for a countdown from 3 on this application.
I'm aware.
You can't. I mean, it's Monday morning. You can't do this stuff to me on Monday morning.
It's because it's Monday morning. I think that's what the problem is.
You know what? I should have had Fleetwood Mac queued up. I feel like I've let you and our audience down.
I'm trying to realize what Fleetwood Mac song you're referencing, and I have not had enough coffee yet, obviously. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I should have had that queued up.
You should have. That's a great way to get going. I can't believe I didn't. I know that song. Yeah. I'm disappointed in myself.
You know, had I known that we were going to start a countdown from 5 and that I was going to be thrown off by that, I would have had the song queued up.
Exactly.
Alrighty, Jess. Well, I'm excited about the topic today. You actually got me thinking. I'm actually prepared for the topic, so we'll see how that plays out.
I know.
But before we get to the topic,
Okay.
I had a question that came to my mind this weekend, and I think it's a substantial question.
Okay.
Sam Seaborn or Will Bailey?
Sam Seaborn or Will Bailey?
We're talking about West Wing here.
I know.
I'm just telling our audience that we're talking about.
Well, if you don't know who Sam Seaborn is, at least, then I can't.
You know, everyone says it's Ginger or Marianne.
I go with Sam. I go with Sam. I mean, the show was originally supposed to be his. The show was built around.
Have you heard what he said about the show recently?
Oh, are you gonna hurt me?
Oh, he said it was miserable. He said it was a miserable experience. It was pretty interesting. He's been like really negative on it. Anyways, he's
Rob Lowe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he is. He's.
See, I really think I think this is going to be. I'm gonna. We need to
I
hold an
haven't.
audience.
I'm rewatching it. I'm still in the Sam Seaborn. I haven't
Yeah, but
gotten.
you remember Will Bailey, don't you?
I do. Oh yeah, Josh Molina. Yeah.
Right. See, when you think about this, I think it really plays into the Ginger Marianne, right? Because Rob Lowe is the star, et cetera, et cetera. Josh Molina, little bit off kilter. See, I got to tell you, I think I got to go Will Bailey. I go Will Bailey.
Well, yeah.
You know why?
Why?
You know why?
Why?
He has a wit. There's a wit to the Will Bailey character that's just as you get caught up into it, and so Will just so I'm.
I was going to say, did Will just show up in your rewatch? Is that what sparked this question?
Yep.
I'm not there yet.
Now there is also a major plot hole in West Wing. Do you know what the biggest major plot hole in West Wing is?
What?
Chet Bartlett would never be elected president in the modern day. And it has nothing to do with his political ideology.
Why?
Martin Sheen is 5'7".
Too short.
There's no one 5'7" would ever get elected today. Doesn't matter how. Doesn't matter. The last president under 5'10", I'm trying to think. To get ready for this episode, was Jimmy Carter, 5'9.5".
Was he under 5'10"? See, he even seemed tall.
5'9.5".
Wow. Yeah, Martin Sheen is short.
I was watching, and I'm, as he was, other people saying, I'm like, how tall? I mean, Martin Sheen and I are the same height, and if it wasn't for my height, I would definitely be president of the United States. That's what everyone tells me.
Exactly. Oh my God. I mean, that's accurate. He would not be, not that you would be president if it wasn't for your height, but that Martin Sheen would not be elected president because of his.
So, just interesting. Now, oh my God, Tim Matheson. He's tall enough to be president.
Who, I don't remember who Tim Matheson is.
See, I love doing this to you. Jonathan Hoynes.
Oh, okay.
Like, do you notice how do you notice how much taller he is? Like every time.
Yeah. Well, so they do a lot of staging around Martin Sheen's height on this show as well. People are strategically like, Kobe doesn't stand next to him very frequently, and I think it's because of the height difference.
How tall is Richard Schiff? Let's find out.
I don't think he's that tall, but he's taller than Martin Sheen.
Well, Martin
Stockard Channing's tiny, so she's not taller than him.
Richard Schiff is 5'10".
Yeah.
Mrs. Bartlett is 5'3". So
I knew she's tiny because of Grease. Like, John Travolta towers over her in that.
Okay, that's where I forgot.
Movie.
And what did she play in Grease? What?
She's
she wasn't.
Oh God. I'm gonna lose my my theater card.
Was she
God,
Rizzo?
yeah, she Rizzo.
So she was Rizzo.
Yeah, she killed it as Rizzo. Best Rizzo ever.
How tall is Olivia Newton-John?
She's not tall. I don't know how tall she is, but she's tiny as well.
5'6".
Is she? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I heard she likes to get physical.
Good God. Okay.
So where does Olivia Newton-John rank in the pantheon of? I don't remember the name of the main character in Grease.
Sandy.
Where does she rank in the?
So they killed it in the casting of that movie. Like everybody, like gold standard. Everybody across the board holds up to this day.
Even Vinnie Barbarino.
Yeah. Yeah. He's great.
You know what Grease lacked? You know what Grease needed to would have made it a classic? Horseshack. If Horseshack had been in.
Oh my God. All right.
Or what about Juan Epstein?
You've lost the audience now. Officially.
What about Juan Epstein? Signed, Epstein's mother.
I don't know that show that well to.
It's all from Welcome Back, Kotter, baby.
Yeah,
Welcome Back, Kotter.
I was gonna say I don't know Welcome Back, Kotter well enough to have this conversation with you right now. I'm familiar.
I should have had that. I should have. We need to get this whole banter set up because I could.
Oh my God!
I could have had.
You could have had the
we
theme.
Tease him a lot. We tease him a lot. Welcome back. Alrighty, what are we talking about today, Jess?
We're gonna talk about change management today, Doug. A topic
management.
that I was not
What would you like to
expecting.
change?
I was not expecting this topic to rile you up quite as much as it did, but you had some thoughts already on Friday when we chatted. So, and you've had the weekend to think about it. So the way this got brought up to me is that from our content manager Fiona, change management's a huge and often overlooked part of using CRM and should be thought about from the beginning, but it's usually left to the end when it's not nearly as effective. So first I wanted to see.
Well, what's your take on it? What's your take on change management?
So I have also had the weekend to think about this and do some research, and so I definitely think it's often overlooked, and not really discussed early on.
What does it mean to overlook change management?
So, and this is where I'm like hesitant to, because in my research I looked up a lot about like change management planning and what is that, and I think a lot of change management plans are overkill, but I don't think it gets discussed or thought about until you get to needing to roll out the system to users. So when we talk about it being overlooked, it's that we're not really talking about how we're going to manage the adoption and the utilization and the fact that we're asking people to change systems and usually processes and kind of how we're going to prepare people for that change and deal with the resistance we're going to get to that change.
What's the manifestation when it gets delayed to the end? You said you agree that too often you wait till the end.
Well, so I think it gets realized when people aren't. So we talked about adoption and utilization last time. People aren't utilizing the system in the way that we expect them to use it. You start to get heavy resistance. Hey, I'm not going to. This is too hard because whatever that resistance is. That's kind of where you see that manifestation directly. And then from higher up, not necessarily your users, it's, well, I'm paying for this and people aren't using it and people are just complaining about it. And so that none of the people involved in the process are really, none of the people who are being asked to use the system or impacted by the system later on are really involved in the process leading up to.
All right. So where did you want to start?
Well, I wanted to start with your thoughts on that statement. Like, do you agree with that statement? That it's often overlooked and left to the end, so it's not nearly as effective?
So here's the place where this topic struck me and why I'm struggling with the topic is because I used to really think a lot about change management. I read a lot on change management over the years. And the question that I'm posing now is change management a thing?
Why are you asking that? Like, how is it not a thing?
Because I don't know. Because I think, we used to pay a lot of attention to change management here.
Did
right?
we?
Yeah, we did. If you go back when you were first here.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And we don't pay a lot of attention to change management.
I don't know that I agree with that statement.
Do we pay a lot of attention to change? How often do we talk about change management here? For us.
Oh, for us internally? Oh, yeah. Not that often. Okay. I misunderstood what you were saying.
Right. We used to talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
We used to address it a lot. Now we really don't even think about it. And I would say we've had more change. We've had more better change since we stopped thinking about it.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
I think when you talk about the CRM,
mm-hmm.
I think like the statement is accurate, but the cause is not about change management. The cause is the business processes and driving the technology. I think when we talk about resistance and change management, et cetera, so like let's think about this. We take a company that's got 300 salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
They're using 4 different systems, with the dominant system being no system. Spreadsheets, notes, everything around the place.
Yep.
We roll out a new CRM.
Yep.
Is that rollout supposed to be right the first time?
No.
Of course it's not supposed to be right. So why would we expect everyone to go, oh yes, this is what I want to use. So here's where I came down over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the problem with change management. The way, at least that it's defined, talked about, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it was designed in a time when there wasn't a lot of change.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does is it isolates a change. It takes an item out of an ecosystem and highlights it.
Yeah.
Or I would say even over highlights it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was interesting because I saw some of your notes where you talked about, you felt like it was 5 different groups, including stakeholders, committees, sponsors, leaders, champions, etc.
Yeah.
Yet think about, for our larger implementations,
mm-hmm.
how many teams do we have? 5 or 6?
Yeah, correct.
Made up of champions, stakeholders, right? So, but it's not about, okay, everyone, we're making change. We're about to change. We're not creating this, the reason for change.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I found an article that I thought was interesting, where it talked about change management is not a checklist, but adoption. I would change that to utilization based on our conversation last week. And they go on to talk about how effective change management is more about understanding the business, the users, and the current landscape. So, like, for instance, things like timing. Are we going into budget season? What are we going to roll out while the things are going on? Like that goes to, I think, what you're saying, which is understanding the business that you're working in, understanding the dynamics of that, understanding the business process, versus kind of putting this big whole plan together. That's this 14-point checklist. I think that's what, when we did chat GBT on this, you came back with like this 14-point items that you need to hit. It's not about hitting those items. It's about acclimating the group to the new system that you're putting in place, which I think might be what you're saying.
I don't know that I'm saying that. So maybe, if we're saying change management is adoption management, we're rolling out a new thing, which again is where I think you run into like, there's an interesting article that I saw, was like the 10 primary models about change management, and they all isolate change to be this very linear, processy thing. Like when you implement a new CRM, you are implementing change.
Right.
But is the change because you're implementing a new CRM, or is the change because of why you're implementing a new CRM?
Well, I think that depends on who's implementing and who's involved.
How so?
Well, so we talk about the business process must always guide the technology. Technology can never drive the business process, but I don't know that everybody approaches it that way. So, I mean, if you're doing it the right way, then it would be, you're doing a process change. But
why do people get a new CRM? Why does a company get a new CRM in the first place? Does a company get a new CRM in the first place simply because their technology is not good? I mean, they're hitting their numbers, they're exceeding their numbers, they're highly profitable, they've got good line of sight, everybody is happy, everybody feels good. Does someone go, hey, you know what? Our CRM is old and it kind of sucks. Let's implement a new CRM.
So what if I don't want to pay, like what if I don't want to pay what I'm paying for CRM, and it's about, a cost savings measure? You don't think they would, that instance that would be the case?
So why is there, so here's my first question is, when have you ever seen a company go through a meaningful cost reduction action while they're ahead of all targets?
Okay, that's fair.
And now, are you saying that our margins are under pressure? And so while we're hitting our top line numbers, our bottom line numbers are?
Sure. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Right. So there's still an underlying performance problem.
Right.
So now you might approach it, like, again, you might approach the CRM implementation incorrectly, right? But like what we talk about, what you need, like our episode on adoption and utilization for CRM, other than the fact that the business process must drive. I would say this when it comes to change management: the business process must drive the change. The change should never drive the business process, right? What you're changing is the business process. Here's my question: what isn't changing today?
You just mean generally?
Yeah.
Everything's changing
right
all the time.
So now go back to the 1970s. That wasn't true.
Yeah.
Right. It was, the whole point of if you look at the industrial economy, right? What the internet did, or what technology did, what high technology did with the microchip, was it radically changed the element of distribution. It radically changed your limiters. So if you go back to the 1980s and 1990s as an example, and you take a look at trading in the stock market, trading was much less, had much lower volumes. People were less likely to trade as frequently as the average share. And the reason for it was there was a cost to the trade.
Right.
Both from the standpoint of, because people were involved, someone had to make money, there were commissions, the spreads were bigger, et cetera. Well, what's happened with one of the main things that technology brought to business, to finance, to humanity, was the ability to do massive calculations to radically change what distribution is, to reduce the limiters, which now people don't even think about commissions.
Yeah.
When they trade them. I mean, like, there used to be a job where you made a really good living just on the fee that someone had to pay to trade shares, right? And so you were, now it's like, hey, I'll jump in for this, jump out, and now the same thing has happened in every aspect of life today. Is that the cost of change, the cost of trying this or doing that, is lower. AI adds to that.
Right.
PowerPoint added to that. It used to be that you would put a message together, you would put your story out there, right? And it stayed. And what was one of the main reasons why it didn't change? Well, because the cost of changing it was high.
Right.
We'd have to go back. We'd have to do storyboard drawings. We'd have to create new silicon to be able to go to print and on and on and on. We're going to have to take 50,000 brochures out to introduce 50,000 new brochures.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, I'll just change this page. Oh, I'll just change this. I'll just change this.
Right.
So the other element, when you take a look at change management and the way change management is approached, is it builds in the assumption that people are resistant to change.
Well, are they not?
Yes, they are. No, they're not.
Thank you for that decisive, straightforward answer. What do you mean by that?
How much change management was needed for people to start using cell phones? And then how hard was the transition from cell phones to smartphones?
Not that hard. I mean,
how much training do you put your kids through on how to use their phone to keep track and look up something on? I mean, right. ChatGPT had 100 million users in like 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah. Now my parents need more training than my kids. I just want to throw that out there. And that's because they're from previous time.
So I don't know so much that people are resistant to change as much as they are tied to their habits.
Okay. But isn't that, if you're asking somebody to, like, I'm tied to my habit and you're asking me to change my habit, aren't you then asking me to change? Like, isn't that a change?
Yeah, but what am I managing?
I mean, I don't know how to articulate it other than you're asking me to change a habit. You're asking me to change the way I operate. You're asking me to change what I do.
And how do you do that naturally?
Like, how do I change a habit naturally? Practice is the word that comes to mind. So, like, I have to consistently and purposefully do something differently until the old habit goes away and I develop a new habit. Like, that's.
So let me ask you this: what is the 3 zones of execution? Is that a change management model?
I've never thought of it that way.
So I would say that the 3 zones of execution is not a change management model, but it is a model for change.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you want people to change, and by the way, when we're talking about change management, we're not talking about your parents learning how to program their VCR.
I understand.
Program the time on their VCR, right? And by the way, let me ask you this: when it comes to getting your parents to get it so that the 12 isn't flashing on VCR, do you know what makes me sad about the world today?
What makes you sad?
Is that metaphor is going away. That our kids don't know what it means. That someone,
my kids don't even know what a VCR is, like, or a DVD player.
Just the clock flashing 12 because
I know.
Clocks now automatically pick up something and they have the time. Like, that's just so depressing that we expect so little from humanity that they don't even have to program their clock anymore. That's how much we've lowered the bar. By the way, what is the best way to get somebody to change? Bring the change in a manner that they don't have to do anything different.
Right.
Right. You know what we call that? We call that automation.
Okay.
Right. Do we have to get people to adopt logging their emails in the CRM?
No, because
we don't.
Yeah.
Right. So they're adopting the CRM, even if they don't know they're adopting the CRM.
Okay.
Right. So one of the ways that you look at change is how do we, and you've heard me, like, one of the problems with CRM implementation historically, and the legacy approach to CRM implementation, is that fundamentally it's asked the rep, the user, to change what and how they do to log into the CRM.
Mm-hmm.
And the difficulty of that is that there's no juice for the squeeze. Now, by the way, why did people, for the rep, right? Why do people adopt their phone? Why do I not have to teach you anything to have you go to your phone?
Because it makes my life easier.
Actually, more than that. Because it doesn't always, because here's the funny thing is sometimes it really doesn't make your life easier. You know why? Because dopamine. Because you get addicted to your phone.
Yeah.
Because every time you go to your phone, you get a little bit, right? Social media, like ping, 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 right?
Yep.
So the thing about where I know we're talking about 3 zones of, where were we on the 3 zones of execution?
It's not a change management, but it does manage change. Like it does manage change, I think is what you said.
So what we're saying is we are the company. Here's the company we are today. Zone 3, the transformation zone, is this is the company we want to become. Mm-hmm. Zone 1, the next 90 days, the performance zone, like get shit done, hit key targets. Don't introduce a whole bunch of new shit in here
while you're in that zone.
Right. Don't introduce a whole bunch of new shit in zone 1.
Yeah.
Right. Why do we go through a 90-day, 120-day implementation cycle on a CRM? Because we're going through an analysis and system design, et cetera, while we're not fucking with how people are executing. And then we go, okay, what's level 1 complete? Do we expect the first level of complete to be right? No, we don't. Right. So where do we do? What are we, we're hitting on the important elements. Why are we doing this? So what is change management? Mm-hmm. Change management is communication.
So so I actually have that in my notes. You and I landed in a very similar spot.
I got another one that you probably don't have.
Okay, but what you just talked about, that goes to a little bit of where I was trying to get with understanding the landscape. Because we do this frequently, where, we implement HubSpot, and there are sales enablement tools on Sales Hub, like sequences and playbooks and templates. And the plan is usually to get those in as a phase 1. But if we get in and start doing our discovery and realize they don't even have email templates, they don't even have a consistent standard way that they're communicating out, we will frequently table those items because we realize, and this would go to what you talked about with the primary system is no system. Usually this is how this plays out. We'll say, okay, we're not going to do that as a part of phase 1 because that's going to just totally, the change is going to be so drastic, and you're asking people to change their process so much by using some of those tools. We'll frequently table that because it's so much change that it's going to overwhelm.
There's only one time that sequences should be used in phase 1, and that is if you have a sequences type situation already.
Yep.
The reason that sequences get used in the beginning is because it's a neat feature.
Right.
And I am convinced that it gets introduced early, and that kills its adoption.
We used to not necessarily operate this way. We've used it where we've kind of pushed to get it in, and then and then it actually causes more frustration because that goes to expectation setting. Because why is nobody using this?
Here's a question. What's missing in 99% of instances where sequences or cadences are used?
Content.
No, something even more frequently than content.
Cadence?
No playbook.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It would be like it would be like going into football practice and working on formations with no playbooks. And by the way, playbooks are more than just the quote unquote play.
Right.
It's the context behind the play, the why, what are we doing? Right?
Yep.
How many people come in with cadences, sequences, whatever, and have no real business process?
Yep.
Clearly mapped, clearly identified.
Yep.
Where are the variances in it? Right. So like where, if you're changing a thing, if I'm going from CRM A to CRM B, ERP A to ERP B, there like, I think that's where change management
Mm-hmm.
in what is called change management has a role. But I think that change management is more about training.
Really? Okay.
Well, so there's a CRM that I don't want to name that we've seen a couple reverse demos of, and every time we see the reverse demo, we're like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that in each of those reverse demos, there's at least a couple people who are resistant
Yep.
to the new thing because this is how we do it here.
Right. Yep.
Right. That's habit.
Yeah.
Right. Now, why would somebody stick to a 17-step process when
Mm-hmm.
it can become a 0, 1, or 2-step process? I'm used to it.
Right.
I know what to do. And by the way, you know what's nice about a 17-step process? You know what's nice about manual that sucks about automated?
You feel good because you get that dopamine hit because you're completing these, you're checking boxes,
Could be.
It's
Control,
visible.
though. I would say control.
Okay.
I understand it. It might be wrong, but I understand it.
Okay.
Like, why are people more afraid of flying than they are of driving? The illusion of control.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. If the data just comes in, well, I don't know where this data came from.
Right.
Right. So one of the things, this isn't always true, but it's often true, is when you're doing these 17 steps, you create the illusion of understanding what's happening.
Right.
When in reality, maybe you don't. Right. But anyways, right. So I'm used to it. I know what to do. So is that, am I gonna go through a change management process on this? I'm gonna start by creating a clear vision. This is ChatGPT's answer, everybody. And by the way, every change management model fits into this when we call it quote unquote change management.
Yep.
Create a clear vision, engage leadership, build a strong change team, communication and transparency, stakeholder involvement, training and development, identify and manage resistance, pilot and test, celebrate small wins, evaluate and adjust, sustain the change, measure success, learn and improve, document the process. Wait a second, doesn't that sound like what I would do if I'm not changing anything?
Yeah.
Have you ever, I don't know if this ever happened to you. I remember when I was a kid, there were times like my room would get messy to the point where I'm thinking, man, I need to clean up this room. But then my mom would tell me, you have to clean up your room.
Uh-huh.
And I'd be like, fuck that. I mean, I didn't say that to my mom, of course, but
I'm dealing with this with my kids right now, but yeah.
Right. Like if she hadn't said anything, I was about to clean up my room because it was driving me crazy.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden now you've like highlighted it.
Right.
Right. So what's funny is, have you ever noticed how often the more you make it okay not to change something, the more you make it easier for someone to change?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so what do you need to do? What you need to do is you need to align your vectors. That's where change management, and that's where it gets, that's where things get bogged down, is when your vectors aren't aligned. When we're not clear on where are we going? Why is it important that we get there?
Mm-hmm.
Change management is all about context. It's all about creating context. And so the thing that I hate about, I mean, again, in a time when every day you come in, I mean, remember, if we look at the industrial age, it was about, we were training our people not to think.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So you know what great change management is? Red work, blue work. Right. That's where Marquette's entire theory was this whole idea of change management was this centrally driven. And by the way, take a look at it. This is the fundamental problem with every change management model that I've seen. Is that it's centrally driven. It's top down.
Yep.
And it becomes about compliance.
Yep.
As opposed to being decentralized. Right. So change management becomes a great excuse for things. Change management becomes a great place to blame. It's a great place for, I mean, candidly, it's a great place for senior management to abdicate their responsibility of actually the discipline that's needed to run the business.
Right.
Because management today is change management. There is so much change There is so much unknown. How do you create a clear vision for something new that we're doing?
I mean, you communicate it. You show
what do you
it.
communicate?
You. Okay, I don't know that I'm following what you're saying then.
We're going to do something we've never done before.
Uh-huh.
Here's how it's going to work. Here's the 7 steps
Mm-hmm.
for us to do something that we've never done before. Here's the 7 steps for us to do something that's never been done before. Remember the first time we did a playbook?
Yeah.
How could we have communicated a vision for that?
We couldn't have. I mean,
right. So when you go back to where change management, this thing that we call change management, was a solution, it was a drug for a time when we were taking it this is our process to do this, and we're now bringing a new system in, or we're changing this process to do the same thing that this other process. So we're using process A, we're now moving to process B.
Yep.
But its function is the same.
Right.
Right. So there's a defined set of elements. There's a defined beginning point and end point, right? Right. Increasingly, that's where automation comes in. Increasingly. Here, like change management, the problem with change management is it over focuses on the change.
So you're saying by putting a microscope on that, or I should say a magnifying glass and not a microscope, you're basically getting the opposite result that you want because you're focused so much on the change and not enough on.
Yeah. How about building the organization for change? But you know what? You don't have to build an organization for change. You're in an environment of change.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. And this is why 3 zones of execution is, I think, so valuable. Right. Here's where we're going. Here's how we're operationalizing this level of complete, all those things that we talked about, reinforcing again the context, because it is highly, highly, highly likely. I would say virtually certain that if you're changing anything that matters, the course that you're taking is going to change meaningfully at least 2 times before you're done. And I'm not exactly sure what done looks like.
Right.
Right. So the mindset of change management is the idea that launching the CRM is the finish line. But if I say launching the CRM is not the finish line, it's just the next start line,
right,
for the next 90 to 120 day, 180 day period, then all of a sudden the definition of change management changes.
Yeah.
Right. It is, change management is a waterfall philosophy. It is not an agile philosophy. Agile is built on change. Agile is 3 zones of execution, acceleration cycles, all those things that we talk about. They're about stability management. It's like we need to flip it on its head. We used to live in a world of great stability, relatively speaking,
right,
that had change. So we needed to manage that change. Today we live in a world that is all change that needs stability.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so, like, what's one of the best ways to implement change? Talk about what isn't changing, what hasn't changed, what is the same.
Yeah.
Because by the way, the vast majority of times when we look at the things that we're talking about with change management, and especially CRM, we're not talking about making your life more difficult. We're actually providing more control to you. It's also why, am I going to look at this through the lens of changing the CRM, which is a CRM initiative, or am I going to look at it through the lens of managing our performance, enhancing our performance?
Yep.
Selling more with the same or less effort. Right? Yep. If I look at it through the lens of a performance initiative, it all of a sudden it changes things. Right? And so, because the reason that I got stuck on this, Jess, was we don't talk about change management a lot with our clients, at least not that I'm aware of.
No, so we talk about it when it gets brought up by them because they feel like they need, like, we'll have somebody on their side who's like, okay, well, we need a change management plan in place. And actually, now that it's interesting, I didn't realize we were going to go to 3 zones of execution, but that's usually where I bring them back to, is I remind them what we talk about, especially when we're launching a new CRM. Like, we talk about the phases, and when we get to launch, that's launch, and then there's a stage after launch, which is iterate. So launch is not done. And I think another reason, and this is why
actually, just so we can get on the same page, the stage after launch isn't iterate. It's relaunch.
It's relaunch. Yeah, I think it's actually review is what we have in that, which is then relaunch. Yeah. So the stage after launch is relaunch, right? I think a lot of times why these change management initiatives get put in place is I have to report up to my CEO, my CFO, whoever signed the check, and like explain to them what are they getting. I think if you think about it in relation to the 3 zones, and it's like, hey guys, we're going to get this set up and staged, and not everybody's going to use it. We're not going to get, like, we're not getting full utilization in phase 1. What we are planning on doing is like testing some assumptions, learning a whole lot, so that way for phase 2 we can make those improvements we need to make. And I think that helps you manage those expectations on both sides.
You know what's missing in every model of change management that I looked at? What part of the process is going to change? So the change management is all about you change.
Right. Yeah.
You change. Right.
The user changes.
So the salesperson doesn't adopt. The salesperson isn't in compliance. What every change management model infers, at least, I don't know that it says it outright, because I know some people go, oh, no, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that.
Right.
But they're not using it. They're resisting it.
Yeah.
That's a feature. It's not a bug.
Right. Yeah.
Right. In the same way that we look at it through the lens of building a product, right? The customer starts using our product in ways that we never thought about.
Yeah.
Right. The great product companies go, oh, right. And
yeah.
So the whole idea is, yeah, the CRM is going to change. We're going to learn what works. We're going to begin to get this, and then we're going to adjust this. We're going to be running lots of experiments. That's change management.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm running experiments all of the time, then all of a sudden, change doesn't become. I'm listening to a great book, Amy Edmondson, the person who wrote talked about psychological safety. I forget what the name of that book was, but it's the I can't. It's basically the right kind of failure.
We'll put it in the show. We'll put it in the show notes.
What you have to do. So the change management comes from this place where failure is a stigma.
Yeah.
Now, she talks about 3 types of failure. She talks about intelligent failure, basic failure, and complex failure.
Right.
And then she also talks about 2 categories of failure. There is blameless failure.
Yeah.
And right.
Yeah.
There is some failure that that's a problem, right? But the difficulty is this is all about the idea of our system needs to be right. You want to know the most powerful element of change management?
What?
Scoreboard.
Oh yeah.
You want to change? You want people to change the scoreboard?
It's funny that you bring that up, because that was anywhere in my research. Does anybody talk about like tracking or scoreboard? Like,
well. So here's the thing, and so we have the revenue acceleration framework, and it was built on this whole idea that what are the companies that are quote unquote doing it right? What are they doing that's different? How does this whole thing?
Yep.
And I used to think, I come from a school, I come from a place that the strategy, the idea, that's different.
Yeah.
The companies that kick ass, they have a better strategy.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not true. It must be the companies that execute better, right? They have better people. They have better execution. You know what? That's not it either.
Yeah.
It's the structure. I mean, that's why RevOps is so crucially important, right? And here's the thing. You have the equivalent. RevOps is the functional equivalent of RevOps is not new in any other discipline except in the world of sales and marketing.
Yep.
Right. This idea of structure, system design. We don't go. We don't. The story that I always love is you're interviewing a new director of operations, and they learn about your manufacturing process and the equipment you use, and they respond, oh, that's an interesting piece of equipment. But over my 20 years of working in the business, I've kind of found my own way.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do that instead. It's like, that's not, you don't manufacture without real process and
right.
and and understanding that and whatnot. I'm rewatching Mad Men. I started watching Mad Men just so I had some variance on that. And in the first episode, it's the whole Lucky Strike. Don Draper has to come up with a and in his saving grace that saves it, he asks, like how do you make your cigarettes? And the
right.
son of the founder, it's like, I don't know. And Dad looks at him and he goes, shame on you. Right. Now, I will tell you, that's one of the things that technology has done, is it's made it really easy for people not to know how they create the value that they create. But the difficulty with change management is, again, it focuses it on so much on the change that it creates a compliance element, as opposed to the how,
right.
What's important, the distinction. Right. And so I think like that's where 3 zones of execution comes in. That's where aligning your vectors comes in. That's where, think about, what has been the best improvement for our team coming back from our offsite was, this is where we're going. This is the central place. And
right.
You know what? It's going to change 100 times.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, my favorite part of the whole time was, oh, by the way, for all of this new, here's what we said 10 years ago.
Right.
And right. It's a different flavor of. So, managing change is real and it's hard.
Yep.
But things are always changing. So let's get out of this idea that there is no change.
Yep.
Right. And by the way, what's the best way to overcome somebody's resistance to something? Consistency.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to change your time frame. So like, to call it change management today, we're oversimplifying it. And by the way, when you think about the person who's saying to you, well, I need to go to my executives and I need to explain, isn't what they're really asking for a training plan?
Yeah. Well, so I think they're asking for a training plan. I think they're also asking for what I would call more of a communication plan rather than a change management plan, which is how do we communicate up? How do we communicate down? How do we set expectations about what to expect? Like, I think it's that. I don't think it's change management plan. I have a couple of key takeaways. I think which just hits on what I just said, what you said around change management is really more communication, not change management, communication management. Don't focus so much on the change. It actually has the inverse effect when you do that. And then look to the 3 zones of execution. When you're thinking about this, for what zone are you in? How are you communicating these things out? Think about iteration cycles versus and improvement cycles versus beginning, middle, end.
And that'll do it this week, Jess.
Sweet. Thanks, everybody.
Just remember, Jess, just say no to shitty RevOps.
Till next time.
And that's a wrap on this episode of the RevOps Show. I absolutely love what Doug said about how the world used to be of great stability that had change, so we needed to manage that change. But today we live in a world of change that needs stability. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to go subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to listen to us. We would really love it if you'd share the episode and leave us a review, because that's how we continue to create episodes that benefit you by hearing your thoughts. So we'd really appreciate it. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask Doug or Jess about change management, please email me at hannah@liftenablement.com or hit us up on formerly Twitter, now X, @demandcreator, or LinkedIn @liftenablement. And until next time, just say no to shitty RevOps.